Welcome back. Today I am going to make a soup because I've just been on a real soup kick lately. So as you can see, I've got a lot of ingredients here. I've got 3 leeks, all chopped up and washed because they always get a ton of sand in them. So I've got those done. A huge head of celery and 4 onions, 6 zucchini, some mushrooms, and if I decide I might even throw in a can of mushrooms. I actually have a can of white beans here, but I've also got sitting off on the side, I've got a can of 6 mixed beans, and a whole bunch of kale that I've got chopped up here. As you may have guessed, I am making Dr. Furhman's anti-cancer soup, and it's just got everything in it. So back here I've got like a cup of cashews that are softening up in some hot water, 4 cups of water. Now the 4 cups of water are basically to cook the beans, but I've already got the beans cooked, so I don't know if I'll be using that, but I kept it. He calls for 5 cups of carrot juice, and I get this because I don't have a juicer. So I just picked this up at Walmart. I was going to make this the other day, but I picked up carrot ginger soup and then I forgot and left it in my car in a heated garage. So I didn't want to take a risk with that. So I had to go back and get another one. So we'll be using that as well. And Mrs. Dash. So that's what we're going to start with, and I am just going to start by breaking down some of these ingredients, and then we're going to toss them in the pot. So let's start with, maybe I should cut that down a little bit more. I think just for the ease of the machine, I'm just going to break this down a bit more. When you get leeks, I take them and I cut them in, I cut these 6 ways, I cut them in thirds. I cut the end off and I left about this much. And I've got those in a little dish of water over on my counter by the window there. And they're just I'm gonna try and regrow some of them. But so I cut the bottoms off, about an inch, left about an inch. And then I cut the remaining amount into thirds. So it was basically 3 of these long. And then I cut them sideways through the center. And then I put them in a large bowl of water and soaked them. And that just allowed the water to get in and make it easier to get the sand out, because leeks are growing in sandy soil and they hold a lot of that sand in them. So you really got to wash them out good. All right, just get a couple more of these going here. So up towards the top, the leaves on these, I don't know if you can see those, they're really quite thick and fibrous. They're pretty chewy until you cook them down. So we're gonna make sure we cook them. I'm gonna move this a bit. Now, while this is chopping and whirling around a bit, I'm going to try and see if I can cut some more of these up while this is chopping. I think I'm going to still have some big pieces in here, regardless of how I do this. Let me just see here. Yeah. There's a few bigger pieces, those bigger ones I don't want to cut up quite as easy. So I'm just going to pour this in here. You need a really big pot if you're making this. Okay. So this soup will make a huge amount. And what I generally do, what I'll do is I'll keep a day or two's worth out, and then the rest I freeze. Of course, I'm just one little person trying to get littler. And soup is a very filling thing, so I want to try and always have some soup in the fridge ready to go. And that way, if you're like having a craving and you don't know what you want, and you can have some soup. Soup always works good for me. So here we go again. So I'll just take this blade out and try and show you about how small they are. Now there's some bigger sizes in there, some bigger ones and some small ones, but just, generally thumbnail size. Some people like it a little bigger, some people like it a little smaller, but because some of it is so tough, like those darker green leaves, I like to make it smaller. This way it's easier too for blending different things. About this time, I'm actually going to start turning the oven on. So I'm going to turn that on and shake this up real good and put it in. So this is, I don't know how much this is. This is 1.5 liters. Oy. So that would be about 1.5 quarts. This is going to be really good when it's done. I usually use a spoon like this. So I'm going to try and bring this over so you can see it. But it's about half full. Can I do this without losing everything? The next thing I'm going to throw in here is going to be the onions. And then we're going to be pretty much done with this part. So it calls for 4 onions. I cut them in quarters. I'm wearing contacts. So the interesting thing about contacts is if you cut onions and you're wearing contacts, your eyes don't water because they block the fumes, for lack of a better word. That's not the right word. They prevent the fumes from getting into your eyes, basically. So I'm just going to chop these up a bit. There's a couple of larger pieces here that didn't blend up so well, and I'll do those manually. So, oh, my hands are going to reek like onions. So the pot is filled to about here now. So I've got it on medium now, but I'm going to turn it up to about medium high. In goes 6 zucchini, like that big. They're just, the size of a nickel, dime nickel size. Mushrooms. We're going to throw some mushrooms in. So the celery, the onions, the leeks, the mushrooms, all of those things are going to create a lot of moisture. I'll put half of it in at least. And then if I need a little more later, I can put more in. I need to get rid of some of these things. I'm actually going to get rid of this can of mushrooms because I'm trying to use more mushrooms. Just going to toss them in too. 2 tablespoons of veggie zest. This is a half a tablespoon. I have no idea what's in here, but it smells good. I'm just going to stir this up. I'm going to bring you over so you can see it. There you go. So you see how full this is? And I still have the kale to put in. I'll put in after this is cooked for a bit. So we still have the kale to add in. And see how this is kind of orangey here because of all that carrot juice in the water. But look, so there was 1.5 quarts, about 1.5 quarts of water and an extra 2 cups because I had 4 cups measured out over there. So the water is actually, the liquid would be down around here. Down, oh, you can't see that. It would be almost at the bottom tip. No. So we're just going to let this sit for a while and cook. In this particular pot, when I've got this much stuff in it, I have to stir it often. Otherwise, it tends to stick to the bottom. So we'll come back and we'll stir it quite often. Let's put this on and we'll go relax for a while. Smelling really good. So sometimes, because this takes up a lot of space in the fridge, so oftentimes what I'll do when this is done cooking like this, especially if I make it later in the day, and it's time to go into the fridge, well, it's still cold enough at night that I can put this out on my deck, chill overnight out there, and then the next day, once it's cooled down the next day, I will dish it out into containers similar to this one. And that reminds me, I was going to see if I could put some of the lentils in here now. So as you can see, I just roughly took about half of these lentils and, you know, 1.5 cups, and I'm throwing them in here. And I'll just put the rest of these lentils in the fridge. So I'm just going to work through those lentils. The zucchinis haven't quite broken down, so they're still cooking. The onions aren't fully cooked yet. So we still got a little ways to go. And you can either just leave it as it is and eat it like a really chunky soup and just blend cashews. Take the cashews and blend them. I'm basically going to drain the cashews. And Dr. Furhman does recommend that you take some of the juice and the pulp and stuff and blend it in the blender and cream this down some, which is what I think I'm going to do. But I want to cook it for a couple of more minutes, so we'll leave it for a little bit longer. Okay, so I think we're getting pretty close to everything being done here. Jeez. So I'm putting this block of spinach in, and I just want to make sure I get this broken down. The other thing I have to do is take and break some of this down in the blender. So I'm going to take some of this. I'm going to strain these cashews. And I'm going to go blend this up. And I think that's going to be enough. So I took this kale and I de-stemmed it. And so this was a full bunch of kale when it originally started out. So just going to throw that in. And that, I believe, is going to be our last ingredient. And other than that, it's pretty much done. And there you go. That's Dr. Furhman's anti-cancer soup. So thank you everybody for coming along. If you haven't already, subscribe below if you found some value in this recipe. Let me know if you've made it, if you make it a little different than I do. How do you make your version? So subscribe, hit that like button, and I said let me know what you think of this particular recipe. And you guys have a great day.